Are you fixated on someone who isn't right for you? They can't meet your needs and they're showing toxic behavior. In your mind, you know it's right, but there's a deep part of you that's hooked on them and can't let them go, and you're kind of obsessed with it, and you're still hooked on them and obsessing about them. And this is a pattern for you. You find it incredibly difficult to leave people that you have this kind of deep attachment to. Today, I'm going to show you why you are stuck in this pattern of self-abandonment in this kind of a relationship, and I'm going to unpack the attachment origins to the dysfunction of self-abandonment. And in the second half, we're going to go through 3 steps to reclaim your identity, find peace and feel like yourself again, and so that you can actually be happy alone until you find a healthy match. And if you're new here, welcome. My name is Amy, and I help women who are sick of falling for unavailable men to break the cycle of toxic romantic relationships by healing their core wounds so they can be happy alone till they find a healthy relationship. And if you'd like more content on this topic, please click the subscribe button and hit the bell notification so you get notified when I post new lessons every week. Before we begin, Heal Your Heart School is open for enrollment, so if you'd like to know more about how to work with me, make sure you stick around till the end. So what is self-abandonment in relationships? This looks like a pattern of continually choosing relationships with the wrong guys. Their values don't align with yours, like they can't commit, they never choose you, they're emotionally unavailable, and there's just toxic behavior. It's completely harmful to you and your mental health, but you stay in these relationships past their expiry date. You ignore the red flags, you tell yourself that the relationship's okay, you're kind of burying your head in the sand, and your priorities in this relationship are out of whack, right? You're choosing your version of love over a healthy connection. So that part of you that craves healthy, authentic love, that knows that this isn't right, you're pushing that part of you down because your definition of love is actually distorted. You know, someone that brings you coffee every day still isn't going to be right for you if they are controlling you and manipulating you, right? So our version of love can get really distorted when we have this kind of addictive bond. So you might feel like you're on a hamster wheel where you're just constantly accepting breadcrumbs, and it feels like a situationship, but it's not actually going anywhere. And you just can't help yourself. You will take whatever he gives because you fear so much being left or abandoned, right? There are abandonment issues at the core of what's going on, and we will unpack that. And there's a part of you that might think, well, I just need to find the right guy, but you keep attracting in emotionally unavailable, toxic partners. And I want you to know that it is about you. It's about your filter and your ability to discern and what's actually going on underneath in your core wounds. And if you want to know more specifically about why you keep attracting emotionally unavailable men, I want you to watch this video next. So why are you stuck in a situation like this? What's actually sticking you there? Because most people be like, well, just leave. But you know you can't, because if you leave, it will feel like you'll die, right? There's this deep fear of abandonment in you. It feels completely uncontrollable. It feels very like old, like it, you know, it really did originate early on in your relationships. And one of the reasons is because you don't actually know any different. You're used to these kinds of relationships. This is familiar to you. You might have grown up in a family where there was a lot of this, where you're not getting your needs met and there are no boundaries, and there's actually really toxic dynamics. And so you just think this is normal, and this puts you into a lifelong chronic state, a chronic disassociation from yourself, to the extent where you actually don't know your needs, you don't know your boundaries, you don't know your identity so much. So because none of this is in place, it's easy for you to fall into a relationship with someone that has those toxic dynamics, because that's just familiar to you and what you're used to. Unfortunately, this means we lack the ability to have emotional self-intelligence. We don't know our emotional states day by day, right? It's only gray and then really, really bad because we're kind of like holding everything down. Now, self-abandonment is a trauma response, and obviously in your current relationship, you might be experiencing trauma, and so you're self-abandoning in order to stay. But I need you to know this is much deeper than just your attachment style. It comes down to the core wounds that were created in your earliest relationships when you were very, very young. So staying with and avoiding conflict with someone who is toxic to you, who continually doesn't meet your needs and is controlling what you can do, what you can say, who you can hang out with, what you can wear, all of those things, if you keep fawning in a relationship like that and you keep submitting to them to avoid conflict and make everything okay and keep connecting the peace, even though it is really, really bad, there is 100% chance that you have some level of trauma from your family of origin that's caused this trauma response within you to self-abandonment. Probably don't know this is self-abandonment because it's a chronic state for you. It's normal because it's been happening your whole life. It's far from normal to stay in a relationship where someone is so toxic for you, but it it feels normal to you and it's what you've always known, right? And you think that they're the only one that can actually give you any kind of love. You'll never find that kind of love again, right? But the reality is what's going on is there's significant toxic traits in this person. They might have narcissistic tendencies and they are rejecting you in a massive way, as well as also probably keeping you on a hook, which is that really unhealthy toxic dynamic. And so why would you force it with someone that is so wrong for you? The answer is because you have a core wound where you fear being alone. You fear being on your own without this connection, and this person is your primary attachment figure. They represent your nervous system the same as your parents when you were very, very young, when you were struggling to get your needs met and to feel healthy, authentic love from them. You just haven't ever experienced that. So what is this core abandonment wound that's running the show? I do have an entire video on that here, but just quickly, your earliest experiences in relationship where you were abandoned, and it might have looked like someone actually leaving the household, a divorce happening, or it might have just looked like one or both of your parents were emotionally unavailable and you never felt fully seen, heard, and understood, right? You learned a coping strategy for that dynamic, to be someone that you're not, to be loved by them, and you live with a constant fear of abandonment, okay? Because that was just normal in your childhood. Now all of your adult relationships are tinged by this. Like I said, it is a filter where you attract in that same familiar dynamic, and you spend all of your time and resources and coping strategies scanning for a threat of being abandoned, right? There's just no way that you can leave this toxic relationship when your abandonment wound has been triggered. It puts you in a chronic state of trauma response, which is that fawning state where you won't ever bring up anything that might be perceived as conflict, right? You don't go against anything. You kind of like living in their world and accepting everything and just ignoring all of the red flags. And as a result of this chronic self-abandonment, you never have a chance to know your true self, your true needs. That all feels incredibly scary because you just don't want to be alone. Now, this is obviously a type of attachment dysfunction where you've carried your childhood patterns into your adult relationships. And like I said, it might be an ingrained part of your personality where you just know no different, and your abandonment wound is driving all of those types of insecure attachment to varying degrees. So I want you to be discerning with this advice, but know that deep attachment insecurity causes you to cling to what's familiar and to actually think that that primary attachment figure is necessary for your survival. So there is a deep part of you that think this toxic person that is doing all those awful, horrible things, they're actually essential for your survival. You won't be consciously aware of this. This is what the energy in your body is believing. And it's why you latch on so early to someone you hardly know as well, right? Have you ever experienced where you've only been on one date with them and all of a sudden you know that they're the one, you have to be with them, and there might be all this love bombing going on, that kind of a pattern where there's hard and fast at the beginning and then they reject you. It's this kind of like chasing love cycle. That's a sign that your abandonment wound is way out of control. So be self-compassionate about this part of you, right? I understand it's easy to shame ourselves and think, well, anyone would leave a relationship like this, but I actually physically can't. It is because your survival instincts are kicked in, right? If you were to jump off a cliff and jump into the water, you would be struggling to the surface in order to breathe. This is no different when you're in a toxic relationship where your abandonment wound has been activated. You need that connection in order to breathe like oxygen. So be compassionate with yourself when you're going through this. Now, I'm going to go through 3 steps to stop self-abandonment, but I do have a complete guide on healing self-abandonment that includes a 60-day self-love plan. You can download that in the link below. So step 1 is you've got to draw a line in the relationship. You've got to do a complete audit of what's actually going on in your life. So what is and is not okay in the relationship. Really allow yourself to look at it black and white on paper. Where was the first line that was crossed by this person? What red flags are currently going on that's not okay? What were the earliest red flags that went on that you made okay but really aren't? And where have you been settling for less or settling for minimum behavior? You need to make that decision now about what you will and will not tolerate anymore. I'm not saying you need to do anything about it yet because it's not going to be safe for your body to do, but you need to cognitively really understand and organize this in your mind so you can get clear on paper. So know that the part of you that needs to stay in this relationship is your trauma body and your mind. It's not actually you. You are a whole self, and you have this part of you that's in a trauma response right now, and it probably feels like you because it's been running your entire life. It feels very familiar to you, but know that this is actually not you, and we're going to work to break this down. Trauma bonds like this can be broken, and this is a type of a trauma bond. This is one of the most serious ones, and if you want to know more about what trauma bonds are, watch this video next. But know that you will survive without them. You will be safe without them, but you need to sort of off-ramp your connection with them in a way that feels safe to your body to be able to do that. So it's kind of like withdrawing from something. Rather than going cold turkey where you're going to feel completely like overwhelmed, you're going to withdraw slowly. So when you write down that list of all of those things that are no longer okay and what's actually going on in the relationship, I want you to separate your adult self away from all of that, because it's actually a young part of us that's connecting in this trauma bonded way. And our adult self is the part of us that's like, I know this relationship's really unhealthy. I don't know why I can't do anything about it, but I know. We're going to drop into this part of us that's our higher cognitive thinking. It's the part of us that really knows what's right for us and what isn't. And we're going to reframe the dynamic that's currently going on. So your abandonment wound is currently needing soothing, and it's needing connection. And the only way you know how to do that is to get connection with this person who's completely toxic and wrong for you. Right? Guess who actually needs to provide that self-soothing and that connection? You. All right. So, and that part that actually does that is our adult self, not the child self that's reaching out for the toxic connection, but the higher part of us that knows without a shred of a doubt that this isn't right. And it's the part of us that now needs to come into relationship with the abandoned young internal part that's kind of scratching at the door to try and get connected to him. So we need to let that part know that it is no longer safe for us to reach out to connection with them, because anytime we do, we are re-traumatized by it. And no doubt if you're in this pattern, you are going back in, and it's like you constantly reach in and you get burnt by the fire again and again. You can't stop yourself from reaching out, but every time you do, you get burned, right? So our adult self needs to tell our younger self, it is now no longer safe for us to connect and reconnect back with this person. This is a point of your mental and physical safety. So how do we actually do that? Once we've kind of like gotten clear in our mind of all of the moving parts, step 2 is we're going to get out of the trauma response. And this is what's going to allow us to feel safe in our body to start breaking and detaching from this person. So again, know that you've had this kind of chronic disassociation from yourself. That self-abandonment is what's kind of caused this connection, where relationship with others is more important than your relationship to yourself, and you struggle to be alone, and that's why you're staying attached to them, because this abandonment wound is raging and it's really, really scary. So we actually need to embody a new persona. This is the person that values yourself and your needs and your priorities and your preferences over them. Okay, so in our body, we're going to practice dropping into our body, dropping into the feeling of what it's like to be in our body. When we're eating, we're going to notice all the flavors and textures of food. And when we're walking outside, we're going to really touch in and connect to nature. Take out your earbuds, look around, orient yourself, and be embodied in your body. So we need to get to a state where we feel safe to be in our body, because at the moment you're trying to get safety from the connection with the other person. We've got to get safe in our body as it is without connection at all. So self-soothing practices are going to allow for that. Mindfulness, meditation, and relaxation. If you watch that abandonment wound video, you're going to get some core abandonment techniques that are much more specific than that. But know that finding safety in the body is the first step. The second step in this second step is getting an awareness around your trauma mind, right? Your trauma mind, which is this anxious, obsessing, needing to get the next hit, trying to connect with him, sending him messages, and, then getting really frustrated about it. These obsessive, anxious thoughts, they're not actually you. They're a trauma response as well, just like your physical need to connect with them. So separate out your trauma mind from who you actually are, And this is one way to do it, is to get it out on paper, externalize it. So when you notice in your mind, I can't live without him, I have to have him, all these things were so good, write it all out on a piece of paper, journal it, or voice note it on your phone. That's a great way of doing it. Kind of get it all out, get all that gunk out, and then notice what is the deeper emotion underneath that. What's actually going on? Because there's a reason the trauma response comes over when we start to feel deeply vulnerable. We can't feel those feelings. We don't want to feel those feelings. Once we kind of clear out the riffraff up the top here, we need to pay attention and hold space to the deeper emotions. And no doubt, those emotions are going to be feeling deeply alone, feeling deeply afraid. They're very scary emotions to experience, and I understand why you wouldn't want to do that, but you're going to slowly expand out your window of tolerance to feel those emotions. So dip your toe into feeling them and allowing them. And often when I speak to people on a call, when they're thinking of coming into Heal Your Heart School, there's a lot of tears that come out because you've been holding everything down a lot. And, the first sign of someone listening and holding space brings out those tears. Tears are healing, all right? Tears are energy moving through your body. And, I really recommend you don't do this alone. Do it with someone that can hold a space for you. But allow yourself to really kind of pour out those feelings and start to shift and move the energy. And the other really powerful thing to do with your emotions is to label them, because when you label something, it has less control over you. It's something that is a thing. All right. So it's not in the unknown. You have the driver's seat around it. So get to know the language of your emotions and what emotions you are actually feeling. Is it sadness? Is it abandonment? There are two, different subtle kind of textures to those emotions. So get clear on those, start to learn that language of you. The next aspect of this step is to look at your habitual behaviors. These are the things that you do just by automatic response. You don't even think about it. So notice when you fawn. Fawning is going to be a big part of this trauma response if you're staying with someone that is so toxic and unhealthy for you. So notice where you avoid conflict, where you minimize yourself and you put him on a pedestal. So any of those thoughts around, he's going to be the only one that'll ever love me, no one's ever done it like this, he's amazing, all of those thoughts that are obviously so dysregulated because he has been again and again never showing you any of those good behaviors, like it's only been manipulative, toxic behaviors. Notice when you're putting them on the pedestal, that's part of your trauma response. So when you do that, you often minimize yourself, and that comes with this low self-worth, or I call it a shame spiral. Those are parts of your habit of kind of putting him up there and yourself down here. So you need to reverse that. Put yourself on the pedestal. What is now no longer okay for you? Those behaviors are now no longer okay for you. Reconnect to yourself, to your needs, and recognize those habitual changes in your body and emotion. And at the start, you're going to probably not notice yourself going to it because it's so habitual. But over time, when you catch yourself, bring yourself out of it. Catch yourself, bring yourself out of it. The more you practice it, the better you're going to get at it. And be in relationship, like in your friendships, maybe you have a coach or a therapist, get real about expressing what's actually going on for you in terms of these habitual behaviors, because it can take a mirror of relationship to help you get out of habit. And make sure when you do that, you're working with your body, not just with your mind. There are so many courses and programs and therapies out there that are talk therapy. It's all about this top-down work. That won't work. Your abandonment wound lives at the level of your body. You need to work at the level of your body energetically in order to actually reverse your habitual behaviors. Step 3, you're now going to start to honor your authentic self. So we've hopefully done some kind of clearing work and you're starting to reconnect with what's actually going on for you. You've gotten really clear about how this relationship isn't serving you and you're starting to feel safe in your body so you can kind of detach. Now you're going to start really stepping into what is authentic and what is right for you, because obviously self-abandoning is about denying ourselves our needs in order for connection, and we choose attachment over authenticity, as Gabor Mate says. Now, this is a point of emotional intelligence. This is us knowing ourselves and being connected to ourselves. So What are your authentic needs that you've always been denying? Reconnect to your body's needs in every moment and pause before you have that automatic response to know what is actually right for you in the situation if someone asks something of you. Now, I remember my cortisol was so high and I was in such a strong trauma response that I wouldn't actually realize I needed to go to the bathroom, all right? I would be needing to go to the bathroom, not even physically aware of it, and just kind of acting on higher and higher energy until I finally realized it was so painful I needed to rush to the bathroom. That's how disconnected I was. So just start with basic functions here. Do you need to drink a big glass of water? Do you need to go to the toilet? Do you need to breathe deep? All of those things. And then obviously the next level is to look at what needs are being ignored in the current relationship that you're in, right? Would you allow a small child to be cared for by this person you're trying to be in relationship with and the way that they're not meeting their needs, right? You wouldn't, okay? You would be like, oh my gosh, come here, I will look after you. That's what you're doing with yourself when you realize how much your needs aren't being met. So be embodied with your discernment around your current situation and be in your body to decide whether you actually like them or not. This might sound really simple, but when we're in our authentic self, we can start connecting the dots when our abandonment wound isn't so strong, and it allows us to actually really start to embed in our body that this person is not right for us. So any kind of that chasing energy, that's all disembodied, right? Authentic self energy is where we are really in our body. Our energy is kind of pulled into who we are. We're not putting our energy out and chasing it all. We're in ourselves, we're grounded, we're secure, we're listening to our intuition, which is growing slowly. Might be small now, but it does exist. And the more you listen to it, the stronger it will get. And cultivate it whilst dealing with this chasing energy, because you will still keep doing that, right? It's not going to automatically stop. But the more you pay attention to and cultivate this secure, grounded energy, the less the chasing energy and the habit is going to keep occurring again and again. Also, in terms of honoring your authentic self, this is to do with your identity and exploring what your identity is when you're not in connection with this person. So what do you like? What do you don't like? What lights you up? What brings you excitement? What things do you love to do that you don't do anymore because this person didn't approve of them? Think back to a time when you actually felt like yourself on your own and you were in a flow of life. And if you've never ever felt like this, congratulations, you get to discover this. I'm really excited for you. So carve out a space for yourself to be authentically you. This is where you're expressing, where you're in flow. You might be, acting or singing or dancing or painting or writing or drawing, all of those kinds of creative things, particularly the ones you love to do when you're a child. They will help you reconnect to your identity. And there is so much healing work that can be done if you just simply pick up those hobbies or some of those hobbies. Lastly, in terms of connecting to your authenticity, you need to acknowledge your worth, because at the moment when you self-abandon and stay with this person, you are, in order to put them on the pedestal, you are inherently having to keep your worth very low, in fact, non-existent. You think you are unworthy because they're the only one that can ever love you, right? That is a state of worthiness. That is a worthiness wound. So we've got to get really clear and acknowledge our value as a human being, what you bring to this world without this person, all right? All that love, all that care and compassion and all those feelings you have for him, guess where they come from? They don't come from him. They come from within you. They are a gift that you have. They're currently misplaced and being put on the wrong person because of what's going on in your attachment dysfunction. But those beautiful parts of you are gifts that you bring to any healthy relationship, to any friendship, and we're just going to redirect them to something that's healthy, all right? Just because he doesn't value it doesn't mean it has no value. So you alone in a vacuum have these beautiful gifts and you have so much value. So for the very fact that you've stuck it this far in this relationship without having your needs met is a real testament to how much value you actually bring to a relationship, all right? So we've got to learn how to cultivate relationships where there is reciprocal energy being exchanged. And so start with friendships. Start with any relationship you have where there is this kind of feeling that you feel valued. And value really, in a vacuum, we can only go so far to acknowledge it. Value really gets kind of embedded in the DNA of our body when we have reciprocal relationships. So you've got to go out and start forming more intimate friendships, better connections where there's reciprocal energy going on, all right? And you will eventually reset the baseline of your self-worth. So in this video, I've gone through the 3 steps to heal self-abandonment, but if you want the 3 complete steps that I take my clients through in Heal Your Heart School to working with the abandonment wound and really doing that deep work, I'm hosting a masterclass on the proven 3 steps to self-love after a relationship ends. I'd love to see you in there. You can click the link below to join me there. And I have a free Facebook group as well. I do go in there often and I'm live, and I would love to interact with you one-on-one in there. And if you'd like to apply to work with me in Heal Your Heart School, I have a calendar link to my calendar below. So just click there, book a time with me, and we'll have a chat. And if you have any comments about this video, I would love to hear from you. I will be in the comments below, and click the like button on the video too, because that actually really helps my channel out in the algorithm. And for now, here are some next step videos to help you to really reverse all of those unhealthy patterns and to heal your self-abandonment so you can be happy alone until you find a healthy relationship. And for now, I will see you in the next video.